Some of the biggest mistakes?
No, I would say it was a thrust upon me. The reality was I chose having a business partner, and I'm not a big fan of business partnerships. And the reason for that is, like most marriages, most businesses don't work out. And the reality was I chose the business partner and it didn't work out. If you have a problem, fix it. Like, address what the true problem is and then go fix it, and stop bitching about it, or stop being a victim about it, or stop being angry about it. Address whatever it is, properly diagnose it, and then go fix it to the best of your ability.
Hey, hold on. Before we get back to the episode, make sure you like and follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It means the world to us. And don't forget to turn on that little notification bell so that you get alert every single time we drop a new episode. If you want to really go hardcore, go binge some of our past episodes, and please leave a 5-star review. All right, back to the episode.
All right, let's rock and roll. Welcome back to Real Estate Untucked. And today we have my best friend in the entire world, even though I don't know if he would admit that, but it's true. And no-nonsense, result-driven coach, speaker, and author of the highly anticipated book, Fix It, first draft in the house. I cannot wait for that thing to come out. I feel like I was the test puppy for most of Fix It. It's like, Wayne, this is wrong. Like, you need to fix it. Right, there he goes. But Hank, if somebody's been under a rock for the past decade, you've helped thousands of agents, loan officers, business owners diagnose what's broken in their business, not just treating the symptoms, but truly fixing the core issues for long-term success. Your journey has not been easy, from going bankrupt in your 20s to navigating, right, your newborn son, right, when he was a newborn, right, open heart surgery, everything else right off the bat. Holy cow. And Hank, you've learned firsthand self-awareness is the first step to transformation. Since 2016, you've built multiple different successful businesses, surpassed the $1 million mark, and ranked 68th out of 80,000 individuals in one of your business endeavors. With over 600 great flights in just 3 years, you've traveled all over the country, coaching leaders who are finding success. So I'm ready to, here's what I love about you. It's going to be honest. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be straightforward. And I would challenge any of you that if you are worried about getting your feelings hurt, this is not the podcast for you, because we're going to talk about the real stuff. So before I get into it, let me say one thing that isn't written down. Hey, I think you're probably the most successful person that I know. Meaning, like, there's some people that I look up to, but I don't know that. You don't truly know until you're there, right? And the reason I say that is because, yes, you make a lot of money, but also, like, you've got your life dialed in, right? And I think that's what makes you the most successful person I know. Meaning, you're one of, I don't even know if I could make a list of 3 people that I would actually trade places with. In other words, like, you built something really, really great. A lot of people have built something good in one area. That's it, right? And the other areas are total shit shows. And I think we forgot to mention that when you played hockey at a high level, you had the most penalty minutes. So I feel like a podcast isn't true.
That's the first thing that you said that might not be true.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. There we go. Dude, welcome to.
Well, I appreciate it. And it means a lot. Really, I want to focus in on, because I'm just now acknowledging a certain thing that you just said was, I see a lot of people that I've looked up to, and so much of their life was a disaster leading up to it. And I think what I'm most proud of is being able to do all of what you talked about. 20 years married, many years of marriage therapy. However, I didn't have to have like the big devastating problems to go fix it. A lot of times we just wouldn't fix it. And I'm super proud that I did it while my kids were young enough to be a huge part of their life. And it's probably what I'm most proud of, is balancing all that and still having success.
Yeah. I remember someone, it was somebody's interviewing some billionaire or whatever it is. And he said, like, if your kids don't want to hang out with you as adults, you lost. Like, I don't care what you made. And like, I look at you and I'm like, your wife wants to spend time with you. Your kids want to hang out with you. You're going to freaking rap concerts, whatever it is, right? Hang out with your kids. Like, it's amazing. But like, that's amazing. And well, I think
let's be honest. Huge last night, my kid didn't want to hang out with me. And one thing that I want to make clear is, it's not that we don't have problems or we don't have things that aren't fucked up. And I'm not sure if we're swearing in this podcast.
No, absolutely. This is the podcast. There you go. Yes. Yep. There you go.
I think sometimes people think, well, we got it all figured out. We don't. Like, we still have challenges, yet we have grace in our family. We understand that we want our kids going through stuff, and we're not trying to always rescue them. And we don't have it all figured out, However, we're navigating the rough seas very well, and we're making them skilled sailors. I mean, we're not trying to pretend that everything's perfect all the time, because it's sure as heck not.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So here's what I want to get into. I want to get into, because I think one of the greatest things you've done is you've really established some good principles and like core beliefs and standards. And I would love for this to be like I think this is going to be one of the most nugget packed podcasts we've done. In other words, like I'd love for you just to like lay some of those out. But before that, I want to know, what were some of the biggest fuck ups? Because what I love about Untucked is like, we go like, what was the biggest fuck ups and like, how'd you recover? And that's what I love. Because like, I hate when you hear somebody on stage like, oh, I've just arrived at Success Mountain. You know what I mean? It's like, really? But like, I would love, like, what were some of the biggest mistakes that you made or were kind of like when you went bankrupt, that was kind of thrust upon you, but like, what are some of the biggest mistakes?
No, I would say it wasn't thrust upon me. The reality was I chose having a business partner, and I'm not a big fan of business partnerships. And the reason for that is, like most marriages, most businesses don't work out. And the reality was I chose the business partner and it didn't work out. So that was a pretty big fuck up. And I'm glad that I didn't fuck it up so much that my dad and I no longer have a relationship, because my dad was the business partnership. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that we were able to salvage the dad son relationship. I mean, it was affected, if I'm being honest. However, it's still very solid and it's still there.
Dude, so what's your take on partnerships now? Because I think I love your kind of your viewpoint on this, and let's just pause there for a second, because how many real estate agents get into? I'm gonna like, me and Sally are gonna get together. We're gonna start whatever, and like, dude, 98% of the time those things explode within the first 24 months. 100% of the time they explode within the first 5 years. In my experience, there's probably one unicorn out there that did it. But what's your take on that?
I don't think you should do it. I think you should figure out how to run parallel. And I call them a parallel ship, where both parties benefit from the relationship and it's equitable. Yet if life happens and you win the lottery and you choose to no longer be doing what you're doing, you can get off the off ramp and it doesn't tear the other person down. So what I like is, why are you doing a partnership? And I would challenge you to figure out, how can you run parallel where you both win and both get what you want without having to get married? Because most likely that marriage will lead to a divorce. And if you are going to get into a partnership, have the divorce already. What does it look like when you split up? And there's so many variables and with how everything changes so fast nowadays.
Dude, yeah. So somebody gets a job transfer, somebody gets pregnant, the market changes, what you're doing doesn't work. And so many people get in partnerships, I think, for the wrong reasons. It's like, oh, if I get in partnership with them, I'm not gonna have to lead generate anymore, or whatever it is. That might be an extreme example, but you see it happen. So I love your philosophy of pirates. What's your pirate philosophy?
Well, pirates, what they do is and I got this book from the book, Be a Little Bit More Pirate. And I don't agree with everything in the book yet. One thing that I liked about it was pirates could fight off the British Armada when they came together, because they were a fierce force. But when they weren't in war, they could separate and go do their own thing and be agile and all of that. So what I like to be able to do is I like to be a little bit more pirate, where if we need something, like, our ships can combine together and go fight, and we can be, a formidable force. But when we're in peacetime, we can go do our own thing. And Wayne, we've gone where we haven't talked for 3 months, and then we catch right back up where we left off. And I think that's one of the things when we talk to a tactical standpoint. Dunbar's law says that you can have about 150 relationships, and yet with social media, there's 5,000 Facebook friends that you can have. Look at what season you're in and realize you can have about 150 relationships. So I've broken it down: 36 A's, 96 B's, which doesn't add up to 150. Yet it gives you a benchmark to get tactical and say, okay, where am I going? What is it that I'm looking to accomplish? And do I have the right team? Because if I'm playing hockey, I'm picking a different team than if I'm playing football. They might all be athletes, but I need people who can skate versus people who can block, and making sure you assemble the right team for the season that you're in.
How do you know when someone shouldn't be on a team anymore, and how do you kick them off?
Well, Wayne, you're not in the front seat on my team right now, so we just don't talk as much. And the reality is, because of where I'm going and where you're going, we're running parallel, where if either of us we still talk on a weekly basis because we're friends and there's a relationship. But with the pillar post that I'm going to, you're not on the first line to get to that pillar post. It doesn't mean that our relationship's less than. It's just, I recognize that for you to have a position on that team, it's like Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the GOAT. But at some point, Tom Brady wasn't on the field throwing the ball. And it doesn't mean that he's not an alumni with the organization. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have a part of the legacy and everything else. But you got to put another person in that quarterback spot. So I think it's just recognizing you and I will always be together in some way, shape, or form. You're just not on the front line when we were Bold coaches together, where we were talking every day for hours, where we were both in the trenches together.
Absolutely.
And we were fighting to stay on the team. So I think it's just recognizing where you are in the seasons.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how you've been. One of the things I respect so much about you is you've been, I think one of the great things you've done consistently, and I'm not sure where, I love the work when you started this, you consistently do things before you're forced to do them. And I remember years ago, you gave me some sort of analogy. I can't remember perfectly, but basically said to the effect of do it before you have to do it. So in other words, what I love about you is you'll go to a friendship and go like, hey, we need to spend a little less time together because I'm focused over here. But you'll do it before that person just feels ignored. It gets weird and then the friendship explodes, right? Like you left Bold before you had to, right?
I left Bold when I was at the top.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what's that? How would you articulate that principle? Like do it before you have to.
Well, you have to decide where you peak. And if looking back at my patterns, my senior year of high school, I went and chose to go play AAA hockey, where I was low man, barely made the team, ended up being the assistant captain instead of being the stud on a varsity hockey team where, and people couldn't believe it. I mean, people wouldn't even talk to me. We go back to Bold where we talked. I was a top Bold coach where if I went to a city, it was selling out before I got there. It was the easy part. And what I found was as soon as I figure something out, there's 3 phases. The first phase is like, you don't know what you don't know and you're getting your ass kicked. The second phase is you started to figure things out. Things are catching up. And then the third phase is you won the game as long as you don't do anything stupid. Like with Bold, 200 flights a year wasn't winning the game anymore for what I wanted out of life. So I had to go back to phase 1 and go eat shit for a year building my own coaching business. Now, the reality is because I was willing to do that, and we fast forward, it's been what? It was 2016 when I jumped, so almost 10 years. There's no way I could have the life that I have now if I would have continued down that path. Knowing when the path that you're on has served what it was meant to, and it's no longer serving you. And rather than continue to go down that path because I've gone this far, being willing to go on to that next path. And most people don't have most people can't go from good to great because there's not enough pain and they got to wait till things blow up in order to make that decision.
Well, and that was a pattern you helped me become aware of in my life for so many years. I would, in essence, like, let's say that I need to get out of a relationship. I would just unconsciously self-sabotage and drag that thing out until it imploded. And then I was forced to move on. Right. So I think one of the things you've done so good is like, first off, you're great at seeing into the future, but then when you see that things need to make, you take action before you necessarily have to, while everyone else is waiting. So I think it's very visible when people look at it. Yeah. Like, a team member needs to get fired from your team. It's not going to get better.
And let's talk about a mentor that both you and I have had a huge impact in our life with Diana Kokoska. Like I knew when I made the decision that I was going from Bold out onto my own, I knew that relationship was no longer going to exist. And I didn't romanticize that I was going to be able to save her or anything else. I just knew that my actions were going to cause that relationship to be no further. And I still made it, even though it sucked and I still mourned what we had. I did what was best for my family. And unfortunately, doing what was best for my family wasn't best for her family. And I think one thing that I'm able to do is recognize when I make choices, those choices do have consequences. And it always isn't where, hey, everything will be awesome. No, like she's no longer in my life. Be forever grateful for it, but I don't see us ever being friends again.
Right choice, just because it's the right choice doesn't mean that the emotions are going to line up the way you think they are, right? Like how many times have you made the right choice and it still hurt and you still cried over it and it still sucked, right? I think there's this almost like, maybe it was just me, but I think there's almost like there's delusional belief that like, if I make the right choice, it's going to feel great. Maybe down the road, but like I've seen people get divorced and it was they were both thrilled. It was the right decision and it was still heartbreaking because it wasn't, they had a dream that now is dead and they got to do their best. It may be the right choice, but it still has a lot of pain. I think it's important for people to understand, like, the right choice still can hurt. You just have to go back to why am I doing it? Stay focused on the goal, but it's gonna hurt.
Well, and let's sit there. One of the things we talk about in the book, Fix It, is choose your problems. Like, you're going to have problems. You are. And I think people get this idea that they're going to get to a life where they don't have problems. Yeah. What I'm big on is let's choose the problems that we're going to have. When my wife called me and said, hey, we got Henry deodorant today, I didn't want to miss out on those life opportunities. So I made the decision, I'm not going to continue going down this path. Now, we had just built a home. Life was just getting easy. Yet what I decided was I'm going to choose the problem of figuring out how to provide for my family without being on the road, because that's no longer an option. And if that means we sell our dream home and we move in with my in-laws, I wasn't willing to have the problem my kids not seeing me on a regular basis.
Yeah. And the reward of that, had you stunted that another 3 years, which would have been incredibly easy to do. And I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm curious about the impact, right? Like what would it have done to your kids, to your family?
I know what it would have been. Look at the divorce rate of bowl coaches, and this isn't throwing mud or anything else. I could see the path, because when you are on the road as a bowl coach, you are king shit. I mean, you're flying first class, everybody loves you, and then you come home, and meanwhile your spouse is on a lifeline. I can promise you this. 3 more years on the road would have had me having an affair, or it would have had me getting a divorce, because I could no longer keep the lifeline on that. I just could do the common sense math that my marriage would not have survived me being on the road 3 more years. And even if it survived, it would have been dead.
Yeah, absolutely. So from that, I mean, and what a cool experience, by the way. Like Bold was amazing. You know what I mean? Like, we both learned so much. It was incredible. I think the best thing that I teach people now, and I wish I could help them like really get it, but like, I think one of the most powerful things that we did, and if somebody wants to get better at their scripts, their dialogues, their presentations, whatever, here's one thing that we did basically every single day. So at the end of almost every single day, when we're on our way to the airport, whereas we would call each other, and sometimes it would be 5 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer, but it usually wasn't very long. And it was like, here's what here's what I did good, here's what I messed up on. And we would talk out what I could have done better, right? And you go like, hey, I asked this, maybe I could have done this. Like, we would do the reflection. And I think that 20 minutes of reflection, whatever it was each day together, was one of the things that skyrocketed our impact.
Well, do you remember Shannon Steer? Yeah. She said, hey, what do you think what you and Wayne separated from the other coaches that started when we do? And, they can have their own perspective. And yet at the end of the day, it's because we got twice as much time on task, because every time you got your teeth kicked in the bowl room, I learned from that mistake because you shared that with me, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like right now, especially, go back and watch your game film. Have somebody to practice and role play with. After every listing appointment, whatever, just call somebody to go review it. You know what I mean? So you get the most out of it. So side note, but really, I think it's a really, really important piece. So next thing is then you went on to build an incredible organization within EXP. How the hell did you do that? Because I tell you what, there's so many people that right now they're like going to all these other companies, which I'm sure are cool, but like they're like, I'm gonna go, I didn't do it at EXP, now I'm gonna go do it over here. Now I'm gonna do it. It's like, why don't you just do it here? But like, if they didn't do it here, they're not going to do it somewhere else. But how did you build such an incredible organization within a short amount of time?
Well, it's going to sound arrogant. No matter what I do, I win at. Like, that's just me. National championship, scoring 3 goals in 3 years of junior hockey. Like, I figure out a way to win. So when I was at a fork in the road, I was either going to build my own brokerage or I was going to go down the EXP route. And here was the question that I asked myself. If I can figure out EXP, I win exponentially. It's freedom and everything else. So the first thing was, I believed that I could make it happen. The next thing was, I was very clear on what it was that I was looking to accomplish, and that was freedom. It wasn't another job. It was freedom. That's it. So then I got real clear, and this is where the success code started coming in. If you are watching this, you could see that I have math versus drama on my forearm, and I looked at the math. I had to get the skill set. So when I first went to EXP, it was 3 months before I could even get the MLS on board. So what I did was I stuck with it, and I got time on task until I could get some wins. And this is experimentation. Well, it was 18 months in, and I hadn't recruited anyone. Why? Because the reality was I was just getting time on task. It's like going to the gym. So I showed up and I got, the skill set of bench pressing, the skill set of using all the machines. So when an opportunity came, And Dinah Kokoska, again, I want to make sure he had a huge role in my life and a lot of the success that I have and still continues. Someone once asked her, what's Hank's next opportunity? And she said, and I remember this, she goes, Hank's next opportunity isn't even an opportunity yet. What he's doing is preparing so that when that opportunity comes, he can take advantage of it. And one of her sayings was, when you drink the water, don't forget who dug the well. So the truth is, I dug a lot of wells prior to EXP being an opportunity. And I know this is where everybody's going to be like, so you were successful because bullshit. I was successful because I win at everything that I do, yet I'm playing the infinite game, not the finite game. So I was preparing relationships so that when EXP came available, there was relationships there, and then EXP was a natural progression.
Absolutely. Well, man, I think it's so true. Here's the thing that I think is great, because I want to go back to this for a second. You got clear on your goal. Two things I want to highlight, right? Because I had a close seat to some of this, right? So the first thing is like, you didn't make it complicated, and you just, like, your whole thing was like, every hour on the hour I talked to somebody, right? Like, I engaged with somebody, and I think that a lot of people, they make it so complicated that it would be impossible to start, let alone execute, because your plan is so freaking complicated. Take a team of scientists to figure it out, right? The second thing was, you kept your eye on the prize. And I think this is the big thing that so many people do. They have a goal, let's say it's freedom, or let's say it's impact. But then they get stuck in some of this other stuff, and it's almost like their identity becomes, I own a brokerage, or their identity becomes, and I think that's the biggest one, right? So many people, like, they could win at such a higher level if they came over to a company like EXP, but they keep their little love you shitty brokerage that's not, and I say shitty because it's not making them any money, and they're working way too many hours. And I say shitty because it's not in alignment with why they said they started it. They're not making a great impact. They're not making money. They're working all these out, but like, their identity, they forgot the goal, and they become so attached to the identity of, I own a brokerage, that they will go down with the Titanic.
Well, can I share a chat move with you?
Yeah.
That I haven't shared publicly. So I'm 66th in all of EXP right now out of 1,000 agents. EXP is now a severance package for me. When I look at my decision making, EXP isn't even a filter for my decision making. It's family, and then my coaching business. And whatever happens with EXP will happen because it's no longer part of my decision making process. And here's why. EXP has served its purpose. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. However, it's something that I don't own or control. And the original commitment has changed. Now, I still think EXP is great. And let me put this on there. The changes that EXP has made, I think, is better, and is better now than when I joined. However, it's not what I made my commitments to. And so with that said, I believe that people are better off joining EXP today than back in 2016 when I joined. Why? I think the money's kept closer to the agents making the money. And we could do a whole another separate video on that. Yet I want to show the example of EXP was good for what it did for me and will continue to do for me. However, that's not where I peak.
And I love that, because it goes back to the, don't get like, maybe Diana said it, but like, I'm committed to the why, I'm negotiable on the how, right? Which means like, you're committed to like freedom and impact and family, etc. You're not overly attached to the vehicle, right? And EXP is a phenomenal vehicle, but yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, the top 150 people in all of EXP were in a room. I chose not to go to that room. Why? Because going to that room didn't bring me closer to the pillar post that I was going after. There's very few people that their ego would allow them to say no to that, because who doesn't want to be in that room? Now, some people would say, well, you should be in that room because of blah, 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 blah. Instead, I stayed at home. I didn't miss any of my kids' stuff. I've got a senior in high school. I landed some coaching clients of the real goal that I'm going after, which is this right here. And I was able to do everything that I needed to do without filling my ego and going for significance and importance and all of that stuff. I followed my schedule, and that's why I'm going to reach my goals, because I choose sales over significance.
Dude, and that was one of the greatest things you called me out of on whatever it is. What was, maybe that was, I mean, that was a couple of years ago. But I remember you're like, you called me out on like, you're doing things for significance and you don't have that luxury right now. Like you got to go make some money. You got to go make some impact, right? You got like, and I was going to some events and doing things out of wanting to gain significance and feel important rather than actually, go to the goal. So that was huge for me to recognize how many things I was doing. And significance isn't bad. Like, it's okay to want to do significant things, to feel like you made an impact.
Here's where I'll push back. Choose sales that you get the significance through, but don't avoid doing the work that leads to it. So, and this is where I'll be honest with you. I would have rather been sitting in that room than doing the messages and doing the things that I was doing, but that wasn't going to bring me closer to the goal. It would make me feel as if it was, but me sitting back and just doing the work of doing the 50-25 would, which again, I have these principles tattooed on me. Subtraction leads to multiplication. And so many people, they just keep adding. And this is where I will say I built the best EXP organization of the whole company. Now I know that's a bold statement for the reason I came here, which was freedom. And so everybody knows, anybody in my organization, if they need me, reach out to me. But if they ask me a question that could have been handled by a Google search, they get a strike. Everybody gets 3 strikes with me. And if you waste my time 3 times, we don't talk anymore, because with 1,000 people in my organization, I can't be the bottleneck for it. There's no way.
And I think there's so many times when people go, well, I'm going to go take this class or whatever. It's just like, what could you have done in that 8 hours to grow your business? Like, that's a long time. Imagine 8 hours of you picking up the phone versus going to the thing, do it right. Like, it's huge. So yeah,
we want a tactical and
yes, absolutely.
If people get nothing else from this, I'm going to challenge you 10 years from now, be able to make a bet of $100,000 that if somebody says they get to pick the year, they get to pick the month, and they get to pick the day, and as long as you can defend what you did every hour in the hour, you'll win $100,000. And if not, you have to pay $100,000. You'll be successful. And that's what I can do since 2016 is if you give me a year, a month, and a day, I can tell you what I've done every hour on the hour, defended in court with, Zoom logs or phone logs, and will defend. And so by working 3 days a week, I built multi-million-dollar businesses. Now, this is where some people will say, well, Hank, yeah, but you aren't as big as some of the other coaches. I don't need to be as big. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and making $500,000 a year. It's a pretty fucking awesome life.
And it's amazing how we get distracted with everything else. Here's my question. So some of your principles. So one of your principles you just said is subtraction equals multiplication. What do you mean by that? Unpack that for us.
Well, so for example, most people have transactional income. So when I was selling real estate, if I didn't show up in 15 years ago, that is where the book starts. Is my son had to have open heart surgery. Well, I was sitting there with dozens of listings. I don't know the exact number, and I could no longer serve them. So I put my clients in danger, and then I also put my family in danger, because if I stopped showing up, I stopped making money. So you got transactional income, you got recurring income, which is a gift from the gods. I'd rather have $20,000 of income that I know comes in on the first of every month like this than $30,000 in transactional income that might only come in every 3 months. It's a $90,000 a month, but I win 2 months with not knowing, because you can't get any certainty in that. And then comes in leveraged income, which was EXP for me. So what we did was I put in my schedule 5 hours a week. As soon as EXP hit $10,000, I went to my board of directors and said, hey, what should we subtract out of our schedule in order to now, because we know the math around EXP. And here's what my accountant asked me. Well, if you just continue doing what you're doing, spending 5 hours a week, will you be able to reach your goals? And I said, yes. He goes, well, your goal is freedom from this revenue stream, right? I said, yes. He goes, then why would you change anything? Why go from spending 5 hours a week to 20 hours a week? Because that might actually change the outcome and not produce more. So from day one, I've only spent 5 hours a week on EXP. Therefore, whether I was making $400, which was my first check, I've had checks up to $68,000, and I've still only spent 5 hours a week. And this is where you need to look at your opportunity. What does your opportunity limit you with? Now, here's the thing with EXP that doesn't work for me now. They changed the model, which I think is for the better, because it keeps the money closer to the agents producing it. But my original thing was 1,000 agents was $1 million. And then I went to about 500, and now it's about 250 based on how I'm doing it. Well, I would have never made my commitment for $250,000. So now, rather than being upset, I know my coaching business can create many, 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 many times that 5 to 10 years from now, because there's no limitations. And I know that 5 years from now, there's going to be opportunities because I wrote the book. There's going to be opportunities where I'm no longer waving the EXP flag, where Remax doesn't have to worry about me doing it because I don't have a filter when it comes to EXP. And I know I can serve and have a bigger impact because I understand my cash flow. And I'm going to give one more formula. Most of you don't have an income problem, you have a cash flow problem. So you make decisions short term because you're worried about the next 30, 60, 90 days. Once you solve your cash flow problem, then you get to referee your life, relationships, energy, finances. Well, if you know what game you're playing, and if it's hockey, you got to get the best hockey players. But what people do is they don't know the game they're playing, so they don't know the relationships to get, and then they don't watch their energy. Then they need to worry about the finances. And so there's a whole formula in this that we don't have time to go through. Yet here's why I have lots of success is because there's a formula behind everything that we do, and there's a rhyme or a reason. I'm not just winging it.
So here's my thing on that. So right now, what are you seeing is the biggest ways people like, what do you, when you say fix it, like give me kind of an overview of the book, and what do you hope people gain from the book that they're able to put in their lives? Like, what are you seeing?
Well, again, back to our mentor, Diana Kokoska, she did a very great job of helping me realize that most people are treating symptoms. They're not treating the actual problems. Here's my goal. And Ron Patowski said this, and we both have a lot of respect for Ron. Ron goes, awareness is transformational in and of itself. So my goal with the book, Fix It, is helping people have self-awareness of the true problem. And most people, when they have awareness around the true problem, they can fix it. So it's to help properly diagnose what the true problem is. Here's the problem with me selling real estate in Kalamazoo, Michigan. At the time, I couldn't make $500,000 a year because the math didn't work, because our average sale price was $200,000. In order to get the average sale price to the number that we needed, there wasn't enough sales to even happen. So I knew in order to make the income that I wanted, I couldn't do it through residential real estate. So I knew I had to find something else. That's where the journey of becoming a team leader was, to get the skill sets and becoming a bold coach. Yet at the end of the day, you have to look at where the limitations of what you're doing, and do they allow you to do what you want to be able to do? There wasn't scalability, there wasn't leverage, there wasn't infinite returns in selling houses. So I had to be willing to jump to be able to go find something that did.
So I just want to go on this for a second. What's caused you to not go build a big like coaching organization sense? Like get 16 coaches on you, because you could, right? You could go hire a bunch of coaches and build out. What's caused you not to do that?
Because of net life incomes. Our net life income is $360,000. As long as we make $360,000 a year, we're able to do everything that we want to do. We don't want to be a burden on our kids, meaning when we retire, we need to have paid for a house, $600,000, and we'll be able to not be a burden on our kids. Our current net worth is $2.9 million. We can make $360,000 a year. And guess how many people I have to depend on doing their fucking job in order for us to get that outcome? Me. Now, some will say, well, what happens if you can't show up anymore? Well, guess what? I've got a rev share income that we just have to sell our $1.4 million house, move it into a $200,000 house. And my wife has more than enough assets where she can be okay or go get a job if I can no longer work. So the truth is if you know what you want, I don't want to be a burden on my kids. I want to be able to do the life that I want. I know how much money it takes. And at $360,000 a year, we can do that. And I like helping people. I don't want to be going and running a business. And if I go build a coaching business, guess what? Now I'm dealing with payroll. Now I'm dealing with people not showing up, and I'm dealing with management stuff. I'm not interested in that for more money. And the reality is, my accountant said this to me. He goes, there's many businesses that make more money than you. There's not many businesses that net as much money as you, especially with the amount of risk and reward that you have. Your
Yes.
business model is brilliant.
And like, if you sit with that for a second, like you may not be the highest earning business, but your gross and your net life is insane, right?
There's nobody that has a better life than what I have based on what I want. It doesn't mean that people don't have better lives.
Absolutely. And that's the key. But here's the key. Here's the thing that I think most people don't do. They don't actually figure out what the hell they want. Would you agree that most people don't actually, they talk a lot, but they haven't actually figured out what the hell do you actually want? They're like, oh, I want freedom. I want like all this stuff, but they haven't figured out, like, cause you start off like, hey, if we have this much money coming in and we're doing this, like, I think most people just haven't done, like, the math doesn't match because they haven't done the math. They haven't
Well, they haven't
figured
been
out what
honest
they're
with
actually
themselves
after.
either.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest. I love being a bull coach. Like, I don't think I've ever been happier up on stage, killing it, changing lives and everything else. And if I'm being honest, I tell my clients, don't message me after 5 o'clock. You know why? Because my cocaine is you.
Yes.
I want to be a good dad and a great
I will
husband.
answer. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I
Or
will
want
answer
to. Yeah.
because it feels better than being a dad. Last night was not a fun night in our household. And the reality is I've set so much boundaries up where I could hold place and I could be there for my wife, be there for my kid that was being a little dink, because that is who I choose to be. And I
Yes.
would even say it's not even necessarily who I want to be, it's who I choose to be, because being a dad and a husband doesn't come natural.
Interesting. I mean, that surprised me because I think you've done so well, and I want to ask you about that in a second. But before I go there, I want you to talk for a second and give some people permission to not grow huge teams, right? And it's possible. You and I both coach people that are on the top of the list and doing the thousands of transactions. I'm not saying that's bad, but I love to hear your vantage point and giving people permission to build a beautiful, what I call a luxury boutique lifestyle real estate company or
Well,
business.
just be honest with what you want or what you're choosing. And I think there's a difference there. But so, for example, we both know someone that said that family comes first. And I was a long-term friend with this person, and then their wife wanted to stay at home and they wouldn't allow it. So I was like, hey, man, change your messaging that your family doesn't come first because your wife wants to stay home and you're not allowing that to happen. And guess what? We're no longer in relationship, because here's the thing is, if your business comes first, that's okay. But don't make it seem as if your family comes first and then you're in a position to make a choice to put your family first and you choose not to. I can't be with people who aren't congruent. Now I run with people who don't share the same values as far as, they have different priorities, but as long as it's incongruent with what they're saying, like, who am
Absolutely.
I to choose? Like,
Yeah.
it's their life.
Let me ask one more question before I go before I pivot. What are the 2 or 3 biggest mistakes you see agents making right now based on this market?
They need to go back to work. It's simply that. When it got easy, we all got lazy. I mean, when I was tripping over $500,000, $700,000 a year, and I mean, I remember I made $72,000 in the month of July, and I worked 7 hours a few years back. And the reality is, the market shifted, and it's an awesome time if you just go back to work and doing the work and working back when you first started. You're going to be fine, and you'll probably be happier because most likely you've gotten a little lazy, and it's time to get back to work.
Yeah. So many people right now are pretending to not know what to do. They're either resisting, resenting, or they're pretending not to know what to do. And it's like, go talk to 100 people a week. Like, we can get real complicated with it, but go talk to 100 people. Ask 100 people a week. Hey, do you have any real estate questions? Hey, you think about buying or selling a house? Like, you talk to 100 people a week, and you're going to win. You're going to do a transaction a month or a transaction a week if you talk to 100 people a week over time.
So I might do this, Wayne, just to prove a point. So within EXP, one thing that I like is if you cap, you end up having 5 levels open. So I might jump back and sell some real estate. And here's what I'll do. And mark my words, if I jump back into selling real estate, I'm going to stand on our busy street corner in a Speedo saying, I'll put clothes on when I list my next home. And guess what? I'll be all over social media. They'll be like, oh my gosh, did you see Hank in his banana hammock? Everybody will be talking about it. Some people will be like, what a loser. And then some people will be like, that's funny. He's not your typical agent. And the reality is no matter what you do will work if you're just willing to give up being right and looking good and you go and make it happen.
Yeah. Just do the work. And if you hear yourself saying, I don't know what to do, just recognize that is your unconscious mind trying to protect you from responsibility, right? If you're saying, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what to do, right? It's just your unconscious mind trying to go, well, if you don't know what to do, it's okay that we're not doing it. You're just trying to protect your ego on a deep level. You probably do know what to do, or at least you can take a guess at it. Go to the mall, talk to 100 people. All right, keep going.
One last thing, let's look at it. Like with EXP, when they changed the model a little bit and brought the money back towards the agents actually making it, well, that affected my cash flow. So did I whine and play victim? No, I just looked at all my options and then I went and fixed it, which means that I had to make different decisions and I had to go do things different. And I just went and fixed it. I sold a truck that was paid for. And one of our mentors that we both know, I won't mention their name, says, you shouldn't talk about when you have challenges. Fuck fuck that. Like, I had a cash flow challenge because something changed, but guess what? I didn't sit in it, and I've now fixed that cash flow challenge, and we're now in a whole nother level of abundance. But I want everybody to recognize this. Most of you know how to make money, and when you have a cash flow problem, take your head out of your ass and go fix it, and don't live in denial and pretend that it's not there. If that means that you got to jump back into production, so be it. Sorry.
No, I love, there's so many people that are like, well, I'm at this level. It's like, go do the work. Yeah. One of my favorite stories was years ago when the market shifted, back in 2007, 8. There was one of the top agents in the country. I remember he posted a picture of his new walking shoes, right? And basically he's like, I got to go hit doors, right? Well, everybody, and you and I saw like the reigning agents dropped off like flies, and there were very few of them that were willing to go back. He goes, all right, market shift hard. Right, he's leading this ginormous team, and he goes, "I'm going to go knock doors," right? Because he did what it took, and I think it's beautiful. So let me pivot with you on this. You've done a lot on the family side. What do you think are some of the greatest lessons you've learned, and some of the things you do now consistently to be a good dad and husband? Like, what are the tactical things you're doing that are helping make that come to
One,
life?
I don't need to be right. I was born where you don't disrespect your parents, and you do what I say you need to do. And so I'm willing to bring in help, whether it's a therapist or whether it's the dance teacher, and get feedback and be able to be wrong. So here's how I'm feeling. I don't need to feel this way. Help me look at it differently. And so the parent that I'm trying to be is, hey, you know what? I don't have all the answers. I'm doing the best that I can, but how I parent Henry is going to be different. How I parent Charlie and how I parent Tessa. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm setting expectations. Hey guys, you're not going to be the 22-year-old living in my basement. You might have to be homeless if that's what you choose. I'm giving you every advantage that you can in life, but you're going to have to go fly the coop. And here's what I will do for you in life. You'll get $100,000 for after school, whether it's college or a business. You get $50,000 for a wedding and $100,000 for a down payment for a house. But if you're little assholes, you'll get nothing. And if I like your other brother better, I might give him more just because I feel like it's piss you off. And I'm setting these expectations from the standpoint of I watch things that I don't like see happening in people's lives where people think they're entitled to their parents, money when they die, or that all of this. So I'm just heading it off, and I'm letting my kids know, hey, I'm doing the best that I can. And if I'm falling short, let me know that, and give me feedback. Yeah, I remember my kid the other day was like, well, Dad, this, and this. I was like, oh, wow. I was completely wrong. And I went to the therapy appointment with them, and I was doing some things wrong. I mean, I don't know, Wayne, do you have everything figured out?
Hell no. And
Here's
just when
what I
you
know.
do, something changes. Just when you think you got it all dialed in, you realize, yeah.
And I'm sure I'm going to cause therapy. Well, all my kids are in some sort of therapy at this point. You know why? Because I need to help them get the skill sets to be able to navigate through things in life. And it doesn't have to be all just for me.
And, it's interesting because I was in therapy the other day, and one of the things I was talking to my therapist about was one of my kids. And I said, what can I do to help them with this specific thing, yada, yada. And we talked about some tactical things. He goes, and at the end of the day, they're probably going to need to come in and do some of this work. So right. And I remember just sitting there going like, yeah, like they're going to have like, yes, there's things I can do. And you know what? Like they're going to need to come in and do some of this work that frankly I'm doing and other people do. And it was that sense of, and you said at the very beginning of the call, and I think this is so huge. There are people that are trying to protect their kids from the world. And then there are people that are preparing their kids for it. And I think there are people that are trying to keep their kids in the harbor until it's a really nice day to go sailing. And there's other people that go, it's fucking storming 90% of the time. We better learn how to sail in the storm, or you're not going anywhere. And I think that's what you and I have both attempted to do. I know you've done such a great job with that. It's like preparing them to sail in the storm, and not just by talking, but I think one of the great things you and I've talked about over the years, like how do I experientially teach these things, right? So what are the lessons, right? In the moment, taking responsibility in the moment, like going, hey, this is a good example of what not to do, whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to throw one of my kids under the bus, but one of my kids didn't want to go and do something. I was like, all right, man, well, there's consequences. So if you choose not to do it, just know that there's consequences, and that's your choice. Dad, don't turn this into a life lesson. No, like I can't physically make you do anything at this age.
Right. Yes.
So if you're choosing not to do it, just know that you've made certain commitments and now you're not living up to those commitments and there's
Yes.
consequences for that. And I don't know what those consequences are, but you can deal with them.
And
Then
it's
you know
so
what I
many
did?
people. Yeah.
I went and played on my excavator because I knew my head wanted to spin around. So instead, I had a feeling that I chose not to have. I responded by saying, here's this. And then I didn't try to fix it right there because it wasn't going to be fixed. And I went out and I separated myself to do something where I could calm myself down, calm my nerves down, and say, this too shall pass. And yeah.
Someone asked me the other day, they said, if you could just give one thing to everyone, like there's just one thing you could give people, what would it be? My true belief is awareness. And I think you and I are so big, like, because you and I, like, I think your superpower, my superpower, I think, is seeing the greatness in people and pulling that out. I think your superpower is creating awareness so people know what's actually going on and what they need to fix. Right? Hint the book. Right? But like going there, and I think awareness is the greatest gift that we can give people. It's the greatest gift you can give your kids. And then with your kids, it's like, I'm not punishing you. I'm letting you feel the result of your choices. This is just the natural result of your choice, right? Hey, you show up late and you don't get to go to the game, you probably get off the team. I'm not trying to punish you. I'm allowing you to suffer the natural consequences of what your
Can I
decisions
give
are
you
leading
an
to.
example of where I've shifted though? My
Yeah.
parents were, if you forgot your skates, you're not playing. And nothing against that. Like, I think they've done a pretty good job raising me. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm successful. Now, my kid forgot something at an event, and my parents are sitting next to me, and from shame and judgment, I'm like, well, I'm not going to get it. My wife goes,
Yeah.
your kid already knew he screwed up. Go get his thing. And what I realized at that moment was, he's already learned his lesson. I don't need to keep rubbing it in because of my shame or my ego around my parents because I knew my parents were judging me. And again, my perspective, it doesn't mean that it's true,
Sure.
but I knew there was part of me that didn't want to be judged by my parents by going and getting what he forgot so he could compete. And I think sometimes what we have to do is we have to look at is what game are we playing? The game that I'm playing is I want to help my kids learn, but I also don't need to continue to drill it into them if they've learned the lesson. I can be there to catch them and be the safety net. And so in that example, I didn't need them to fall and hit the ground. They knew they screwed up. I can be the safety net and go and get that for them.
And playing the infinite game, right? Like I'm not overly attached to winning or losing in this moment. You're attached to winning the infinite game. And I think that goes back to your principles as taters, though, right? It goes back to like, hey, you're 3 strikes, you're out, right? Which you're very clear with people. So it's like grace with 3 commitments. Like, hey, you messed this up. What are we doing different next time to make sure this does never happen again? And if your kid forgot his skates 3 more times, I guarantee you're not going to get them, right? You're like, bro, this is like first time, get you. I love you. I'm gonna help you out. Whatever. Second time, like you said, you're gonna check your bag every time. Third time, like we're not getting your skates, right? So I think that's the principle you got to put in place. It doesn't mean it does. And there's an elevated position. Some people are getting walked all over, and some people are jerks. And there's a third place that takes a lot of maturity and coaching and mentorship and trial and error to get to, but it's beautiful.
Yep, and choose guilt over resentment. I think that's another powerful
unpack
thing.
That real quick.
So oftentimes we do something because we don't want the guilt of saying, so for example, I chose to leave Bold, which was awesome to me. And I chose the guilt of letting Diana down because she poured a lot into us. Absolutely. Yet I would have started to resent her at some point because I was sacrificing what was best for my family. So I chose guilt over the resentment. And I find in life is we should choose guilt 100% of the time versus resentment.
Yeah, that's such interesting. So true. So helpful too. Like, man, there's so many applications. All right. I want to wrap up with this. Okay. I'm going to hit you with some, rapid fire questions if you're okay with that.
Yep.
Favorite color? Orange. I'm joking. All right. Best book you've read. Like, what's the 1 or 2 books that have made the biggest impact on you? In the recent history.
Well, okay. And so in the recent history, depends on what context.
I mean, I would say parenting and leadership.
Parenting. So I don't consider myself a leader, by the way. I consider myself a producer because leadership has been given so much more of a definition than John Maxwell's of a leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I'm not willing to be a leader in this phase of life. I'll be out front. And if you want to follow me, awesome. But I'm not so selfless that I'm going to put Wayne before my kids. So here's what, gosh, I'm sorry. I know I'm not just answering this question, is here's my superpower. So many people want to just give prescription without proper diagnosing. So I'm not going to give you a book yet. Here's what I will do. You message me on Facebook with whatever you're challenged with, and I will find the best book for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And then, by the way, Let Them by Mel Robbins. That book was unbelievable.
Oh yeah, there you go. I've heard like 18 out of 20 people have loved it, and 1 or 2 people have hated it, which has been interesting. All right, what do you want to be even better at a year?
What is it that I want to be even better at a year from now? Right now, I have a new coaching program, which I'm doing the heavy lift on, which means people are going to get way more from me today than what they will get a year from now, because systems are going to replace my time. And I think in the beginning of something, you're strong arming something. So a year from now, I want to be able to have more people go through my coaching program with less time from me without the results struggling because they're getting less time from me.
Yeah, I love that. All right, last piece of advice. What's the worst piece of advice you ever got? Can you remember? I hear people ask me questions like that because I can never recall something that quick. Do you have anything?
I'll say this, loyalty. I hate that word. I think loyalty is the worst word in the language. I don't expect Wayne to be loyal to me. I expect Wayne to be respectful to me.
Yes,
so if he needs to do something that's best for his family, just be respectful and give me a heads up and cause as little damage to me as possible.
Yes.
I don't expect Wayne to be loyal to me at all. I expect him to be loyal to himself and his family.
Well, and when it comes to teams, Brandon Green did such a good articulation of this years ago at one of our broker boardrooms, and he talked about what the loyalty versus alignment. And loyalty is usually guilt and like I did this for you, but it absolutely fear and guilt and shame and all the other stuff, right? It's like, hey, hurt yourself so you can help me. And alignment is like, if we're running together, this is beautiful. What do we need to do to be in alignment? Are we in alignment? If we're not in alignment, then no harm, no foul. Like let's separate and let's separate well. Let's leave as well as we can. And I think that's something that both of you and I have worked hard on, is leaving as well as we can. Leaving, but leaving as well as we can. All right, dude. Freaking love you. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? I got 7,000 more questions.
I think that people, and we didn't set out to write the book Fix It. We set out the book to write the Net Life Agent, 36 to Life. And the reason Fix It came is because if you have a problem, fix it. Like, address what the true problem is and then go fix it, and stop bitching about it, or stop being a victim about it, or stop being angry about it. Address whatever it is, properly diagnose it, and then go fix it to the best of your ability. And just, as no one's coming to save you, be your own hero and get back up. I think we just summed up your book also.
Dude, absolutely. And to plus that, here's what I'd say on that. Like, if you're struggling to do it on your own, we get that, because sometimes it's hard to diagnose on your own. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what to do on your own. But you're a victim in a tuxedo if you're not getting help. And I think that's where Hank can be a huge help. It's like, if something's not working and you're having a hard time getting your arms around it, or something just doesn't, like, reach out and they'll help you diagnose it and give you steps. But you're not a jerk if you can't figure it out on your own. You're a jerk if you can let that continue and don't seek help. Yeah, it's hard to figure out on your own.
Because look at how many people we sought help from, our therapist, Diana, all sorts of people. I think, and here's the key. I will pay all the time to accelerate a learning curve, and be okay with paying for that. I'll gladly write a check. Yet sometimes you just actually need to do the work and wipe your own butt. You can't necessarily write a check for everything.
No, yesterday I told one of my clients, I was like, go sit in a room for 6 hours and journal. Like, that's literally just, it was like, what you need right now, you have, but you got to turn the noise off and go, I can't find it for you. I gave him a handful of prompts. I was like, you need to go sit your butt in a room, don't take your phone, and do the work.
So here's the thing. Let's leave this. It'll be interesting to see if anybody actually listens to this whole thing. And frankly, I would love if they did, and message me that you did. And we'll use think of a funny word that is just random. Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman. I still know how to spell that. I'll have to
remember that Pee Wee Herman had the magic word. And yes. The reality is you asked, what do I want out of this? And here's how I make decisions. And I said, I want to serve you. How can I help you? And if you show up and you ask how you can serve your relationships and help them win, they'll help you win, because you'll never outgive a giver. And if you aren't winning at the end of the season, look to see who was a taker and who was a giver, or it's time to move on, because I can tell you, promise you this. If you have the right team around you, if they're winning and you're not winning, they won't be okay.
Yep, absolutely. Dude, I love you. We're gonna, in the show notes, when it's ready, we're gonna put the book in there when you have a link for that. I challenge everybody to go get that thing, to be able to collapse time and fix it. But dude, seriously, I love you. Incredibly grateful for you, the impact you've had on my life. I mean, you're one of the people that has had a huge impact on my life. You helped change my relationship with my parents. Help me do better with my kids. I mean, in so many ways. So just seriously, from the bottom of my heart, massive gratitude. The ripple effect from Hank is continuing to be badass.
Well, and ditto with everything that you just said.
There you go. Thank you, man.